The Ancient Promise. The morning sun of Zephyria Prime cast rainbow patterns through the floating crystal gardens as Commander Lyra Voss walked among her people. The Zephyrians were a peaceful species, their translucent blue skin shimmering like water in sunlight. For 300 years they had cultivated energy crystals that powered half the galaxy's peaceful civilizations. Their world was a paradise of floating cities and crystal forests, where harmony was not just an ideal, but a way of life. Lyra paused at the observation deck of the central spire, watching children play among the crystal formations. Their laughter echoed through the thin atmosphere, a sound that had remained unchanged for centuries. The Zephyrians had never known war. Their greatest conflicts were debates about crystal cultivation techniques or disagreements over art forms. Commander Voss called her aide, Kep Zinar. His young face showed concern as he approached with a data tablet. "Our deep space sensors are detecting unusual activity at the system's edge." Lyra accepted the tablet, her three-fingered hands moving gracefully across the interface. The reading showed massive energy signatures approaching their system. Ships. Many ships. Her heart began to race as she recognized the configuration from Galactic intelligence reports. Nexari Empire vessels, she whispered, the words tasting like poison in her mouth. The Nexari Empire was the galaxy's nightmare. They were a machine-augmented species that had replaced most of their organic parts with cybernetic enhancements. For 50 years, they had swept across the outer rim, enslaving civilizations and stripping worlds of resources. Their motto was simple: submit or be destroyed. "How many ships?" Lyra asked, though she dreaded the answer. 200 confirmed, Commander. Battle cruisers, troop transports, and Kep's voice broke. Planet crackers. Planet crackers. The massive vessels designed to shatter worlds and harvest their cores. Lyra felt her legs weaken. Zephyria Prime was home to 40 million souls. They had no military, no weapons, no way to defend themselves. Their exploration vessels were designed for peace, not war. "Alert all cities," Lyra commanded, finding strength in her voice. "Begin evacuation procedures. Contact the Galactic Council and request immediate assistance." As alarms began to sound across the floating cities, Lyra knew their pleas for help would go unanswered. The major galactic powers had made their position clear. They would not risk war with the Nexari Empire. The Zephyrians were on their own. 3 hours later, the Nexari fleet entered orbit around Zephyria Prime. The lead vessel, a massive dreadnought called the Iron Dominion, cast a shadow over the largest city. From its bridge, Emperor Krathos surveyed his new conquest with satisfaction. Krathos was more machine than flesh now. His organic brain was the only part of him that remained unchanged, encased in a body of black metal and crimson energy conduits. His cybernetic eyes glowed red as he studied the peaceful world below. "Begin the standard protocol," Krathos commanded, his voice a mechanical rasp. "Demand surrender. When they refuse, demonstrate our power." The transmission to Zephyria Prime was brief and terrifying. "Inhabitants of this world, you now belong to the Nexari Empire. Surrender unconditionally and become our servants or be destroyed. You have 1 hour to decide." In the central spire, Lyra gathered her council. The Zephyrian leaders looked to her with desperate hope, but she had no miracles to offer. Their fastest ships would take days to reach the nearest friendly system. The Galactic Council had already declined to intervene. They were alone. "There must be something," pleaded Elder Nyx, her crystalline hair dimming with fear. "Some way to call for help." Kep suddenly straightened, his eyes wide with memory. "Commander, the human artifact, the one we found in the old archives," Lyra frowned. "What human artifact?" 300 years ago, when the first galactic treaties were signed, the humans left communication devices with several peaceful species. They called them promise beacons. The inscription said if we ever faced extinction, we should activate it. Humans? Elder Nyx looked confused. But they disappeared from galactic politics centuries ago. Most species think they're extinct. The ICA beacon is in the archive vault, Kep continued urgently. "Commander, it's our only chance." Lyra made the decision instantly. Retrieve it. Now. As Kep raced through the spire's corridors, the Nexari ultimatum continued counting down. 30 minutes remained. In the sky above, the enemy fleet moved into bombardment position. The promise beacon was a simple device, no larger than Lyra's hand. Its surface was inscribed with symbols in ancient human script and the universal language of mathematics. Kep connected it to their most powerful transmitter array. "How do we activate it?" he asked. Lyra studied the inscription. Her knowledge of ancient human language is limited but functional. "It says to speak our need to the stars and they will answer." She looked at the countdown. 15 minutes remaining. Taking a deep breath, Lyra activated the device. "This is Commander Lyra Voss of Zephyria Prime. 300 years ago, humanity promised to protect peaceful civilizations. We have never harmed anyone. We have only grown crystals and created beauty. The Nexari Empire demands our surrender or destruction. 40 million innocent souls are about to die. If humanity still exists, if your promise still holds meaning, please help us. We have nowhere else to turn." The beacon pulsed with blue light and transmitted her message across space at impossible speeds, using quantum entanglement technology that shouldn't have existed 3 centuries ago. Moments later, something extraordinary happened. Deep in the Sol system, on a space station hidden in the asteroid belt, Admiral Sarah Chen received the quantum transmission. She was a tall woman with gray-streaked black hair and eyes that had seen too much war. For 300 years, humanity had kept watch from the shadows, honoring ancient promises while the galaxy forgot they existed. "Ma'am," called Captain Marcus Torres, her tactical officer. "We're receiving a promise beacon activation. Zephyrian civilization under attack by Nexari forces." Sarah studied the tactical data streaming from the beacon. The situation was desperate. 40 million innocent lives hung in the balance. She thought of the promise made by her ancestors, carved in stone at the memorial on Luna. "We will not let the innocent suffer while we have the power to act." "Signal the fleet," Sarah commanded. "All vessels, prepare for immediate deployment. We're going to honor a promise." Within minutes, humanity's hidden fleet began to move. 50 ships emerged from stealth positions throughout the Sol system. They were not the largest vessels in the galaxy, but they were built with 3 centuries of human military innovation. Each ship represented the pinnacle of human engineering. Adaptive shields, quantum computers, and weapons that could think faster than their enemies. The fleet entered hyperspace in perfect formation, racing toward a world they had never seen, to save people they had never met. Because centuries ago, humanity had made a promise, and humans did not break their word. Back on Zephyria Prime, Lyra watched the countdown reach 0. The Nexari fleet powered up their weapons, preparing to devastate the surface cities. She had received no response to her desperate plea. The humans, if they even still existed, were not coming. "All citizens take cover in the deep shelters," she broadcast across the planet. "Remember, we lived with dignity and peace. That is, how we will face whatever comes." Emperor Krathos smiled with cruel satisfaction as he prepared to give the order to fire. The destruction of Zephyria Prime would send a message across the galaxy. No one could resist the Nexari Empire. "Begin bombardment," he commanded. At that moment, space itself seemed to tear open. 50 human warships dropped out of hyperspace, in perfect formation, their sudden appearance causing chaos in the Nexari ranks. The ships bore no resemblance to any known galactic designs. They were angular, aggressive, and moved with predatory grace. "Unknown vessels," Krathos transmitted, his mechanical voice tight with anger. "You are interfering with Nexari Imperial business. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." Admiral Sarah Chen's response was broadcast on all frequencies, her voice calm and absolutely certain. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. 300 years ago, humanity made a promise to protect peaceful civilizations. The Zephyrians are under our protection. Withdraw from this system immediately or face the consequences." Krathos processed this information, his cybernetic brain accessing all known data about humans. According to his files, they were a primitive species that had vanished from galactic politics centuries ago. 50 obsolete ships against his fleet of 200 advanced warships? It was laughable. Humans, Kratos sneered. Your species is extinct. These must be the last desperate survivors. Destroy them. The Nexari fleet opened fire, filling space with energy beams and plasma torpedoes. The human ships responded in a way that shocked every observer in the system. Instead of meeting the attack with traditional tactics, they moved like a single organism, each ship covering another in an intricate dance of mutual protection. Their shields shimmered with adaptive energy, absorbing and redirecting incoming fire. When they returned fire, their weapons were unlike anything in the galactic arsenal. Kinetic projectiles that could punch through any armor, energy weapons that learned and adapted to enemy defenses, and something even more devastating, coordinated tactical brilliance. Impossible, Kratos muttered as his first wave of ships began to explode. Their technology should be primitive, but the humans had spent 3 centuries in isolation, perfecting their arts of war while the galaxy grew complacent. Every conflict, every battle, every tactical innovation had been studied and refined. They had prepared for this moment for generations. The tide of battle was turning, and the galaxy was about to learn why humanity had once been feared across the stars. The reckoning arrives. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UNS Prometheus, watching her fleet dance through the Nexari formation like predators among prey. The enemy ships were larger and more numerous, but they fought with the rigid tactics of a machine empire. Humanity had learned long ago that wars were won by adaptability, not programming. Captain Torres, she called to her tactical officer. Execute pattern Omega. Target their command structure. Aye, Admiral. All ships commence Wolfpack formation. The human fleet split into smaller groups, each moving with perfect coordination. They had trained for this scenario thousands of times in simulation, but this was the first time in 3 centuries they had fought to save innocent lives rather than just survive. On the bridge of the Iron Dominion, Emperor Kratos watched his fleet being systematically dismantled. His cybernetic brain processed the battle data at superhuman speed, but he could not understand what he was seeing. The humans fought with a fluid creativity that his machine logic could not predict or counter. General Vex, he commanded his subordinate. Analysis of human tactical patterns. General Vex, his organic brain replaced with quantum processors, reviewed the data streams. Emperor, their behavior is chaotic. They break every known law of galactic warfare. They sacrifice tactical positions for strategic advantages. They use deception, misdirection, and what can only be described as intuition. Intuition? Kratos' red eyes flared. Impossible. Warfare is mathematics. Superior firepower and numbers determine victory. Not for these humans, Emperor. They fight as if each ship commander can read the minds of their allies. Their coordination is perfect, yet their tactics are completely unpredictable. On Zephyria Prime, Commander Lyra Voss watched the battle with amazement and growing hope. The human ships moved like a school of fish, turning and striking in perfect harmony. Where Nexari vessels tried to overwhelm them with brute force, the humans responded with elegant precision. Commander, Kep called out, his voice filled with wonder. The humans are winning. 50 ships against 200, and they're actually winning. In the Crystal Gardens, Zephyrian children pressed their faces against viewing ports, watching lights dance across the sky. They didn't understand the violence, but they could sense that something miraculous was happening. The monsters in the dark were being driven away by guardian angels. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display as her fleet continued to outmaneuver the enemy. The Nexari were powerful, but predictable. 3 centuries of isolation had given humanity time to study every known military doctrine in the galaxy and develop counters for each one. Ma'am, Captain Torres reported, the Nexari are attempting to regroup around their flagship. They're pulling back from the planet. Not acceptable, Chen replied firmly. They came here to commit genocide. They don't get to retreat and try again somewhere else. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. These machines came here to murder 40 million innocent people. We don't stop until every Nexari ship is disabled or destroyed. Show them what happens when someone threatens the peaceful under our protection. The human fleet pressed their attack with renewed intensity. Ship after ship of the Nexari fleet found themselves crippled or destroyed by weapons that adapted faster than their defenses could respond. The humans used every advantage: superior tactics, adaptive technology, and something the machine empire had forgotten existed: righteous fury. Emperor Krathos finally understood that his fleet was doomed. In 50 years of conquest, the Nexari had never faced an enemy like this. These humans fought not just with skill, but with passion. They believed in something beyond conquest and power. "Open a channel to the human flagship," Krathos ordered. Admiral Chen's face appeared on his screen, her expression hard as steel. "You have something to say, machine?" "Admiral Chen," Krathos said, his mechanical voice carrying a note of respect he had never shown an enemy. "Your tactical abilities are impressive. The Nexari Empire would benefit from human military expertise. Join us. We can offer you power, resources, entire systems to rule." Sarah Chen's response was immediate and cold. "We didn't come here for conquest, Emperor. We came here because we made a promise 3 centuries ago. We promised to protect peaceful civilizations from monsters like you." Monsters. Krathos processed this concept. "We are the evolution of biological life. We have transcended weakness, emotion, mortality. We are perfect." "Perfect?" Chen laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "Perfect beings don't wage wars of extermination against crystal farmers. Perfect beings don't threaten children. You're not evolution, Emperor. You're a cancer, and it's time for your treatment." The final phase of the battle began with the human fleet converging on the Iron Dominion. The massive Nexari flagship was a fortress in space, armed with weapons that could shatter moons. But fortresses could be broken by those who knew how. The UNS Prometheus led the charge, its adaptive shields shimmering under the devastating fire from the enemy flagship. Behind it, the other human ships formed a protective formation, each vessel covering another in a display of tactical coordination that made the Nexari defense look clumsy by comparison. "All weapons target their power core," Chen ordered. "One coordinated strike. 50 human ships fired simultaneously, their weapons calibrated to penetrate the exact point where the flagship's defenses were weakest. The combined assault overwhelmed the Nexari shields and punched through the vessel's armor like paper. The Iron Dominion shuddered as explosions rippled through its hull. Emergency lights flickered as power systems failed. In the command center, Emperor Krathos felt something he had not experienced in decades: fear. "Evacuation protocol," he ordered his remaining ships. "Full retreat." But Admiral Chen was not finished. "Attention, Nexari vessels. You came here to commit genocide. You threatened innocent lives. The Terran Defense Fleet does not permit such actions. Power down your weapons and surrender, or be destroyed where you stand." The remaining Nexari ships, seeing their flagship crippled and their Emperor's authority broken, began to surrender. One by one, they powered down their weapons and activated distress beacons. The mighty Nexari Empire, conqueror of worlds, had been defeated by 50 human ships. On Zephyria Prime, the crystal cities erupted in celebration. Commander Lyra Voss could hardly believe what she had witnessed. The human fleet had not just saved her people, they had completely destroyed a force that outnumbered them 4-1. "Admiral Chen," Lyra transmitted to the human flagship. "On behalf of the Zephyrian people, I offer our eternal gratitude. You have saved 40 million lives today." Sarah Chen's image appeared on the communication screen, her stern expression softening slightly. "Commander Voss, humanity made a promise 3 centuries ago. We promised to protect peaceful civilizations from those who would harm them. Today, we kept that promise." "But why?" Lyra asked. "You could have stayed hidden. You could have remained safe. Why risk everything for strangers?" Chen smiled, and for the first time, Lyra saw the warmth beneath the Admiral's military bearing. "Because 300 years ago, humanity made a choice. We decided that some things are worth fighting for, worth dying for. The right of peaceful people to live without fear is one of those things. The aftermath of the Battle of Zephyria Prime sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Within days, the news had spread to every civilized world. Humanity had returned, and they had destroyed the seemingly invincible Nixari Empire. Other species that had lived in fear of the machine conquerors began to hope. The Altherian refugees, driven from their homeworld 5 years earlier, sent a promise beacon activation. The Kepler mining colonies, under threat from Nexari expansion, did the same. Across the galaxy, the innocent and the oppressed remembered the ancient human promise and called for help. And humanity answered every call. Admiral Chen established the Terran Protectorate, a network of human fleets dedicated to defending peaceful civilizations. The promise beacons, dormant for 3 centuries, became active again. Species that had forgotten humanity existed began to remember the ancient treaties and the guardians who had once stood between the weak and the strong. Emperor Kratos, his flagship captured and his empire in ruins, was brought before a tribunal of the species he had oppressed. As he faced judgment for his crimes, he asked Admiral Chen one final question. Why do you do this? What do humans gain from protecting others? Sarah Chen looked at the fallen emperor with something approaching pity. You replaced your heart with a machine, Kratos. You'll never understand. We protect others because it's who we are, it's who we choose to be. 6 months after the battle, Commander Lyra Voss stood once again in the crystal gardens of Zephyria Prime. The floating cities sparkled in the sunlight, children played among the energy crystals, and the sound of laughter filled the air. But, now high above in the orbital station, human guardians kept watch. The galaxy had learned an important lesson at Zephyria Prime. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, humanity was watching. They were the guardians of the innocent, the protectors of the peaceful, and the promise that evil would not go unchallenged. The ancient promise had been kept, and the stars themselves were safer because of it. The Terran Defense Fleet had announced, to the galaxy, we are here, we are watching, and we will not let the innocent suffer while we have the power to act. And that promise would echo through the stars for generations to come.